Okay, so this is the repository that we cloned earlier, and so what we want to do is let's open our repository inside our local machine, and I can see it's here. I open it, and you can see currently the only files we have is the .gitignore and readme. So what I'm going to do is create some files which we are going to use to demonstrate how you can use commands such as commit, push, pull, add, etc. So I can right click here and I can open git bash from here, and what I'm going to do is create some files using the touch command. So I'll create a file like home.html. We have a contact.html. We can also add another file that we can call to ignore. This is a file we may want to not track, HTML. So we have those three files, and we run that. We check in our folder. The files have already been created. We can also create a folder by using that command, make directory. We can also call it to ignore, because I also need to show you how to ignore contents of a given folder like that. So if you run, you end up have a folder. So the next thing we want to do is let's open Visual Studio Code, and from here we can open the folder, the project folder. It's actually right there. We don't need to double click. We just select it and open that folder into our Visual Studio Code. And you can actually be able to click on any of these files, like home. It doesn't have anything. And currently you can see that the folder and the files we just created, they have a U symbol here. That means it's not tracked, it's untracked. So the first thing we need to do is let's open git ignore, and let's ignore the files we are not interested in tracking. So what we can do there is, so if you want to ignore this file, we just add it here. Say to ignore.html. So when I save, you can see the untracked index disappeared. But of course, the gitignore is also tracked. You see it's modified here. For the folder, you can just type the folder and then slash. So anything inside this folder is not going to be tracked, and you can see it's grayed out. So the only things, the only files we have that we want to track is contact and home. So what we can do here is we can actually be able to run the command from inside Visual Studio. Just go down here into the status bar and pull it up. You can see it already navigated into the folder that we are currently using. In this case, I think we are done with gitignore. So let's open home. So maybe what we can do, we can add some, let me copy paste some code here. We add it and save it. Nothing has changed because this file is basically not tracked. So for you to track the files that you're interested in tracking, you can actually be able to run git add. We have an stack. So we are adding we are tracking all the files which are not tracked, and of course, which have not been ignored. So if you run that command, you see that on contacts and home, the symbol has changed from U for untracked to A, index added. So now we are tracking. That means any changes we try to make are actually going to be tracked. So maybe I can even add something here on the same file like that. I can save. So it shows that we are tracking it and it has been modified. Now, so suppose now we are satisfied with what we've done and we want to, you know, commit the changes that we have made. So already you see we have run the command git add. We have said it's supposed to add an index to a given file. Now, once we have already done that, so the next thing we need to do is we run git commit. Now, this M is an attribute for message. So when you're doing a commit, you need to add a message showing what changes you're trying to commit. So maybe because this is a very fast commit, I can just say very fast commit. And if it was a feature that you just completed and you want to commit it, you can actually say feature X being committed. If it was an error you are trying to fix, you can also do the same. So now when we run this command, the changes that we have made have actually been committed. So the index that was added here is the one that is going to mark, or is the one that is going to reference to the changes we've just made. Now, if you go to our online repository, if I try to refresh, you realize that nothing is here. It's only the files we started with. Now, so if I want to push the changes we've just committed to the remote repository, I'll just do git push, and then origin. Remember, origin was our remote connection, and the branch where we are currently is the main branch. So we are saying git push origin master. The master is what I'm calling the main branch, so I have to say master. So origin is the connection to the remote repository and master is the branch. So if I run that, so what is going to happen is that we are pushing our changes to the remote repository. And once that one has been completed, if we refresh our remote repository, you realize that the changes we just made in home, if you open that file, you can see the changes. And you can see that this is my username where the changes were pushed. And the very first commit, you remember, was the message we added when you were trying to commit. Now, suppose that on this repository, we have another programmer who just made some changes on the contact file. So probably what we can do, we can open contact and we are actually able to edit. We can edit. Maybe I can just bring the same content here. I add it here, but then I can maybe add some message here. I can say added online to just make it a bit different. Now, when you're adding anything, obviously, either it was added by another programmer and pushed to this repository, or I've just added it online just to demonstrate that the online repository can be having more changes than what you have in your local repository. So down here, I can add a commit message. I can say added by another developer. Added by another developer. So I commit the changes. So in other words, what we have done is that whatever we have in our remote repository is more than what we have in our local repository. So if I want to pull these changes so that my local repository, you see now the contact doesn't have anything, but you realize that the online one has something more. So for me to pull the changes, I can just run git pull. So if I run that one, what is going to happen is that git is going to check in the online repository, then update my local one. You can see when I open contact, whatever we added or whatever that was already was on the other side of the machine, that is the remote repository, is going to be pulled into your machine. So maybe you try to push something by running git push origin master. If you try to do that, you see everything is up to date, because what I have locally is the same that is what is in the remote. Still, if I run git pull, let's see what it shows us. Already up to date. It means that whatever I have in the local repository is exactly the same as what I have in my local repository.